this collective meeting in order. And the first committee, Human Resource Committee, Mr. Zuber.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. As I reported last week, the job description from the Avon Lake Regional Water Senior Operator was voted out of the Human Resource Committee meeting on a vote of 3-0. This is an update of the senior operator. This is the most senior union person within the water plant. In my discussions also with Todd Danielson from Regional Water, he hopes eventually that this will cover the other plant too. So it'll be basically the facility, the top union person at both the plants. And we would ask to go 3 readings on this particular job description. The other thing that he also mentioned in the meeting was the fact that the certifications that are now needed, and they want to try and groom these people in-house because there's so few people now that have these operator classifications and certifications.
So you're gonna go 3 readings then, right?
That's correct.
Thank you, sir. Questions, anything with the job description for the senior operator? This will go through 3 readings. Any questions regarding this item? Anyone in the audience? Any other items, Mr. Zuber?
No, the other item that we had talked about has already been dealt with per the council clerk and the finance director have worked through that with the judge already.
Okay. All right. Next is Natural Resources, Environmental and Public Media Committee, Mrs. Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. On the September 11th meeting of the Natural Resources, Environmental, and Public Media Committee, the cooperative service agreement with the Department of Agriculture was voted to come to the collective committee meeting by a vote of 2-0. There were only 2 of us in attendance at the meeting on the committee. This is very similar to the agreements from last year. And basically, this is an agreement between the City of Avon Lake and the United States Department of Agriculture for the culling of deer in the city. On page 9, it does state the amount of $34,347. That amount is the amount it would not exceed. It could possibly be lower than that, depending on the number of deer that are taken. Currently, the plan is to get 30 tags or 30 deer, and if it is felt that there needs to be more culling, an additional 10 is possible. A couple of differences in this agreement as opposed to last year. It does include a helicopter survey done by the U.S. Department of Agriculture, as well as the processing. So this kind of streamlines everything going through the U.S. Department of Agriculture as opposed to farming other things out. In terms of the helicopter survey, we will be sharing the cost of that with the City of Bay Village, which can help reduce the cost of this agreement. And the intent is to go 3 readings on this legislation.
Thank you. Questions, anything with the contract for deer calling? Mayor?
Thank you. I don't have questions with the contract, but I do have a question for Mr. Rice, if I could, or Mrs. Campo with her expertise now over a year and a half or 2 that you've been doing this. I've noticed an increase in deer on my property about the last 6 months, and what is the final list or determination they're going to use in terms of establishing the number of tags we can get, that is, number of deer we can take?
That is based upon their field observations when the gentlemen are up in the trees. Any deer that they see lingering in the outside, depending upon the location, the 2 larger properties being Walker Road Park and the Cobb Reservation are the 2 where they can see a distance into the park and therefore, tell which ones are coming in because, they do monitor the bait piles because once again, they are doing the baiting. So they monitor the piles, the amount that goes down there, so that they can more closely manage the time that the deer would come in. So based upon what they see, how quickly, how much, of the bait goes, they will look at additional tags if they see that it's necessary in that area.
Okay.
Mayor, go ahead.
I live near Learwood School and off of Durrell, where the water tower is behind Eastview. And I'm sure the same deer that comes in my yard comes to Mr. Lieberman's yard. And then perhaps they go into Britannia, that area. If you're focusing on Weiss Park and if you're focusing on Walker Road Park, are you going to also make sure that you look at some of these other pockets where there's been an increase in number of deer population?
Yeah, the nearest location to you would be the water tower property on Division Road, just to the north. That's the nearest city property that
Right.
can be used, and they have taken deer out of that location. Usually they might get one or two opportunities in there, and then the deer wander off, but they do look at that. That's the closest one to you that they would be in.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Fenderbosh?
No, I was just agreeing.
Oh, okay. Wasn't the other thing that this year, because the government shut down, that we're gonna go with 33 tags only, or 30 tags, and
Well,
we never got to use the whole amount?
no, in the last cycle, we used all the tags and we got that done by January. The thing that the government shutdown affected us on is the helicopter count. Because by the time the government came back into operation, it was too late to reschedule helicopters. But other than that, those guys did come in and fill the tags, even on their own time during that, because they had so many sites that they were already under contract with. So
Yeah, okay. Other questions on this contract? Anyone in the audience? All right, next is the Safety Committee, and this deals with a new liquor license, which I'm gonna handle for Mr. Koss. Deals with Rico's Tacos and Tequilas LLC at 3349193 Lake Road, Avon Lake. My understanding in an email is that the chief police did not have a reason at this time to request a hearing due to this liquor license, so it seems like it's cleared through the police department. So any questions on this document? Anyone in the audience? Let's go to the Planning Commission, Mrs. Fenderbosh.
Thank you. I'd like to make a presentation at the front.
Yeah, go ahead.
This past Tuesday, we had a number of items that came before us. The two that are on tonight's agenda, one has to do with the improvement plans for Lear Road subdivision. Number two, I'm going to be showing that one first. So the location, if you go down Walker Road, it is right past the corner of Walker and Lear. Presently, there is already a home that's there. We're going to be talking about what is beside it. And this is the second time that this particular project has come before this body. And you're going to see what the improvements are. So to give everybody their, this is Lear Road, okay? And there is a property that's already up here by Walker. And here it is, I'm sorry. Here's a property by Walker. And this is in what they call Block B. And if David was here, he'd tell you that there's a historic home that's right here, all right? And there's a large historic tree that's right on the property here that they're able to save. And what you're looking at basically is the way that the properties are going to be developed. I'm going to turn the page so I can show you what the stormwater management plans will be, because they're going to be putting drains at the back of the yards, and the drain will be going right out here to Walker Road. Okay, so again, here's Lear Road, and you have a retention basin in the back here. that's on this property. It's not on the adjacent property, and this is what the subdivision next to them were concerned about. They're going to be draining the water from actually both sides, and they're going to be taking it right down to Walker Road. This is the underground pipe that comes from the retention basin out to Walker Road. Are there any questions?
Questions? And what's your intentions, sir?
This is construction season. They're trying to get as much of the infrastructure in as early as possible so that they're not out there in the winter putting in the infrastructure. So they would like to have this done right away. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone in the audience like to speak to this development? Next topic.
Thank you. The next topic has to do with the time extension on Southport subdivision preliminary plan. So this has come before us before, and I can show you. Okay, so this particular project has come before us before. It is also on Walker Road, and it is west of the orchard, the old orchard, Schmaltz's Orchard. It's on the south side, and they're asking for additional time to put together their plans because they've run into some additional questions with the EPA. And it has to do with drainage, it has to do with wetland.
So when they say at a time, what are we looking at?
They're looking for an additional 12 months, which is going to be placing this to March 2021 before they will end up putting a shovel in the ground.
Anything from the administration on this? Or?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. They still have an amount of time left. Obviously, March 2020 would be when it would expire, but they're not confident they're going to be able to get things all taken care of by then. So rather than wait any longer, they're asking for the 12-month extension now, and they will be done well before that period of time. So they just didn't want to have to rush or race or try and be squeezed there. So they asked for the full 12 months. They're probably not going to use the full 12 months in this.
Okay. Questions in with this development? What's your intentions on it?
Mr. Lieberman, would this be a motion or would this
It'd be a
be
motion.
a legislation?
Motion for
The
extension.
preliminary plan was, okay, I think this is legislation.
I have not received a letter from the applicant yet, so until I do, it would be 3 readings.
Yeah. If I find out that it's a motion, I'll let you know, but,
Thank you.
but at this point, we can assume it's legislation.
So you have not received a letter from the applicant for the extension? Okay.
No, it's not the extension for suspension of the rules, emergency passage. I have not received
Okay,
a letter.
okay, all right.
Okay, thank
All right,
you.
thank you very much. Would any of the audience like to speak to this item? That concludes the committees. I'm sorry, Mr. Zuber?
Mrs. Fenderbosh, there was another item at the planning commission meeting.
Yes, we had 2 other items on the planning commission meeting. There was one that was from Poly 1. It does not need to come to this body. The other one has to have a covenant signed, and I was advised by the law director to wait until the covenants are signed before we bring it, and that would be a motion when it does come.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, we go to the legislation portion of the meeting. We have one item, second reading, temporary legislation 11,302, adopting the homeowners association street tree program. This came through the tree commission and public service. Any questions with that item? Anyone in the audience? Includes that. Any other announcements anybody has? Mr. Wright.
I'd just like to let council know, when I sent out my weekly update, I mentioned the Moore Road culvert, the bridge work. Avon Lake Regional Water has got underground utilities out there. They're relocating the water line underneath the location for the new bridge. At this point, we are still waiting for a time for Columbia Gas to come out and mobilize on site, but I know it is I was told today by their construction foreman that it is a weekly discussion based upon which crew gets done with the current project that they're working on. So I have scheduled a pre-construction meeting with our contractor for October 1st, because as it stands right now, regional water should be done the end of next week. And contractor is still ready to mobilize as soon as I hear what the gas company can do. So I will keep you updated and we'll go from there. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other announcements? This is public input. Anyone like to speak this evening? Give your name and address. Speak to the chair. You have 3 minutes, including your question. Anybody like to speak this evening? Young man in the back is, no? Okay. All right, with that, we do need an executive session. So Mrs. Fenderbosh, I'll need a motion.
Yes. In compliance with the Ohio Revised Code Section 121.22G, I move to have council adjourn to executive session to discuss imminent litigation.
Discussion? Ross Mayor with the roll, please.
Mr. Arnold.
Yes.
Mrs. Campo. Yes. Mrs. Fenderbosh.
Yes.
Mr. James.
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Yes.
Mr. Zuber.
Yes.
Thank you. With that, there'll be no other items discussed this evening. Thank you for coming down.